Are you finding life more difficult than it should be? Do you often feel like you're being left out or maybe even ghosted by friends? If you're struggling to connect with others or find yourself butting heads in social situations, it could be down to a key personality trait, agreeableness. What happens when you score low in agreeableness, and could it be the reason things seem harder than they need to be? Let's take a closer look. This video is brought to you by Spark Principles for Success. We believe that knowledge is not enough. It doesn't matter how much you know. If you don't have the traits to support your goal, you will not succeed. Agreeableness is one of the 5 key traits in the Big 5 personality model, which helps to describe how we behave and interact with others. If you score low in agreeableness, you might find yourself more competitive, blunt, and less inclined to put others' needs first. At the extremely low end, you could suffer from oppositional defiance disorder. What exactly does it mean to be low in agreeableness, and is it always a bad thing? Let's take a closer look at the potential dangers, benefits, and what it really means for your relationships and success in life. Before we dive into the effects of being low in agreeableness, let's break down what agreeableness actually is. Agreeableness refers to how compassionate, cooperative, and empathetic you are towards others. People who score high in agreeableness are typically warm, friendly, and helpful. They tend to go along with the flow, avoid conflicts, and value getting along with others. On the flip side, those with a low score are often more competitive, critical, and less concerned with pleasing people. They might be more focused on their own goals than on maintaining harmonious relationships. Low agreeableness isn't a fixed trait in a healthy mind. It's more of a spectrum that can shift depending on who you're interacting with, the situation at hand, and even your mental and physical state in the moment. Who isn't disagreeable in the morning after a night of disturbed sleep or after a long drive with a bickering family? You might find yourself more competitive or blunt in high-pressure work environments, but more cooperative and empathetic with close friends or family. Similarly, your level of agreeableness could fluctuate depending on how stressed or tired you feel at a given time. So while you may score low in agreeableness overall, there are plenty of factors that can influence how this trait shows up in your day-to-day life, making it less about being inherently disagreeable and more about the context. It's when you are disagreeable about most things most of the time that you are likely to have a problem. While being less agreeable might have some perks, which we'll take about in a minute, there are some risks involved, especially when it comes to your relationships and social life. One of the biggest drawbacks of scoring low in agreeableness is the strain it can place on your personal and professional relationships. If you tend to challenge others, argue frequently, or show little empathy, it can lead to misunderstandings and resentment. This might make it harder to form deep, meaningful connections, both at work and in your personal life. When taken to extremes, low agreeableness can lead to more serious issues like antisocial behavior. People who score very low might become too focused on their own interests at the expense of others. As Jordan Peterson says, if you're low in agreeableness, you're competitive and focused on winning. But if you become too disagreeable, you're likely to be antisocial and you have a higher chance of ending up in prison. In other words, while a bit of competitiveness can be useful, being too disagreeable might push you into more destructive territory. That being said, there are definitely some benefits to scoring low on agreeableness, especially when it comes to certain life situations. People with low agreeableness often excel in competitive environments. Whether it's in business, sports, or any other high-stakes scenario, being less concerned with others' feelings can help you focus more on your own success. Low agreeableness can fuel the drive to win and put your goals first, which can be a great asset in a world that often values results. Being less agreeable can also contribute to mental toughness. You might be less likely to be swayed by criticism or social pressures, which can help you push through challenges. This resilience can be particularly useful when facing adversity or dealing with people who might try to take advantage of you. Another benefit is that you might be better at looking out for yourself. People with low agreeableness can be more cautious about who they trust and more focused on their own well-being. This means they're less likely to be manipulated or exploited by others. People who score low on agreeableness tend to show a few clear patterns in how they relate to others. They're often more skeptical and even a bit cynical. Instead of taking what someone says at face value, they question motives, look for inconsistencies, and assume there might be more going on beneath the surface. Trust is not something they hand out quickly. They also push back more readily. Low agreeableness often means they are comfortable disagreeing, challenging someone's viewpoint, or holding their ground, even when it creates friction. While others might choose harmony, these individuals prioritize being accurate, honest, or true to their own position. Competitiveness is another common trait. They like to win, and their focus often shifts towards their own goals rather than the group's. Collaboration is possible, of course, but it can take second place to personal achievement. The drive to get ahead can be strong, sometimes at the expense of teamwork. And then there is their communication style. People low in agreeableness are usually more blunt and direct. They say what they think, without dressing it up, sometimes with little concern for how it lands. This can make them seem harsh or insensitive, even though, from their perspective, they are simply being straightforward. If you're recognizing some of that in yourself and wondering if there's any hope of connecting a bit better, the good news is, yes, you can become more agreeable. While agreeableness, like other personality traits, is influenced by a combination of genetics, life experiences, and environment, it's not set in stone. This means that with time and effort, it's entirely possible to shift your behaviors and attitudes to become more compassionate, cooperative, and empathetic. It's important to acknowledge that this transformation isn't necessarily quick or easy. Agreeableness is deeply woven into the way we interact with the world, so changing ingrained habits takes patience and practice. But the fact that personality traits can evolve over time opens the door for personal growth and improvement in both social and professional settings. One of the most important things to understand is that change doesn't mean completely overhauling your personality. It's not about becoming someone you're not, but rather learning how to flex your behaviors in ways that serve you and those around you better. For example, you don't need to abandon your competitive edge or assertiveness entirely. Instead, you can find ways to be more aware of when to pull back and listen more actively, compromise in discussions, or show empathy during a disagreement. If you believe that increasing your level of agreeableness could improve your relationships or help you achieve success, it's definitely possible. In fact, many people actively work on becoming more agreeable as they grow older and wiser, realizing that social harmony and collaboration can play a key role in both happiness and achievement. So, if you're finding that low agreeableness is making life a bit harder than it should be, or if you feel that being more cooperative could help you in your career or personal life, it's worth making the effort to adjust. With consistent self-awareness, practice, and feedback, you can gradually shift your behaviors and become more agreeable in the areas that matter most. It's about finding that balance between staying true to yourself and adapting in ways that enhance your connections with others. Now the question is, should you become more agreeable? Becoming more agreeable could help in certain situations, especially if you find that your relationships suffer because of your bluntness or competitiveness. However, it's important to find a balance. You don't want to lose the edge that low agreeableness might give you in competitive settings, but you also don't want to alienate others in the process. It's all about moderation. Becoming more agreeable doesn't mean you have to abandon your competitive spirit. It just means learning how to be more considerate without losing your sense of self. So, how do you become more agreeable? If you have decided you want to be more agreeable, focusing on certain traits can help you make positive changes. Here are some key traits to work on that can improve your level of agreeableness. The first step of self-improvement is always self-awareness. People cannot change what they do not notice. When someone understands how their behavior shows up in conversations, in disagreements, or in day-to-day interactions, that awareness becomes the doorway to change. Maybe they realize they interrupt more than they thought, or that their bluntness lands harder than they intended, or that their instinct to challenge everything creates tension. Once they can see these patterns clearly, they have something to work with. Without that insight, everything else is guesswork. Self-awareness in itself can improve behavior, because once people notice what they are doing in the moment, they naturally start to make different choices. They pause before responding. They catch themselves before a comment comes out too sharp. They recognize when they are pushing too hard in a conversation or slipping into that competitive mindset that shuts others down. Awareness creates a kind of internal feedback loop. Instead of running on autopilot, people begin to see the impact of their words and actions. And the moment they see it, even if they do nothing else, their behavior often softens. They adjust their tone. They listen a little longer. They become more intentional rather than reactive. It is not about becoming a completely different person. It is simply that awareness shines a light on habits that were hidden before, and that alone can shift the way someone shows up with others. I'm going to briefly mention 6 other traits that can help you become more agreeable. Number 1 is empathy, which is the ability to understand and share the feelings of others. By developing your empathy, you'll be better able to put yourself in someone else's shoes, allowing you to respond in more compassionate and considerate ways. Listening actively and trying to understand someone's emotions or point of view is a great first step toward being more agreeable. Next is patience. Why? Because patience allows you to handle disagreements or frustrating situations without becoming defensive or aggressive. Instead of reacting impulsively or with irritation, you'll be able to pause, think, and approach things calmly. Being patient helps build better rapport with others and fosters positive interactions. Active listening is third. Active listening means fully concentrating on what the other person is saying, rather than just waiting for your turn to speak. This means giving your full attention, nodding in agreement, and occasionally paraphrasing to show understanding. Practicing this trait will help you engage more meaningfully with others, making them feel heard and respected. And don't forget, your behavior often is a reflection of how others behave with you. So if you are giving full attention, they are more likely to respond to you in a way that creates a positive feedback loop. A person low on agreeableness often finds it difficult to be flexible. There's generally a my way or the highway vibe about them. Being flexible means being open to compromise and finding common ground in situations where you might not initially agree. It's about being willing to adapt your views and actions in order to cooperate and work with others. Flexibility can prevent conflict and make it easier to build trust in relationships. Fifth is self-control. Self-control helps you manage your impulses, particularly when you feel triggered or irritated. If you have a low score in agreeableness, you might find yourself more likely to argue or dismiss others quickly. Working on self-control will help you stay composed in difficult conversations and respond more thoughtfully rather than reacting out of frustration. And lastly, at least on this list of 6, and possibly one of the toughest, is humility. Humility involves recognizing that your perspective isn't the only one that matters. It's about being willing to admit when you're wrong, accepting feedback, and not always needing to be right. Humility makes you more open to other people's viewpoints, which can improve your ability to get along with others and work together. By working on these traits, you'll develop a more agreeable and balanced approach to life. These changes can help improve your relationships, create a more positive environment, and make it easier for you to connect with others without sacrificing your individuality or competitive spirit. I want to add a personal note to this. This script was written by me, a self-confessed, disagreeable person. I don't know when it started. I was certainly agreeable enough in school to be the teacher's pet. I think my disagreeableness started as an angry teenager after feeling let down by a parent. A series of events led to a difficult life, which I constantly made harder. Only in much later life could I look back and see that I had constantly made other people responsible for my happiness. It took me a while to realize that I was a bit of an entitled prick who expected people and the world to fit my requirements. Some of my disagreeableness has served me well, but to fit in the world and stop alienating people, I needed to change. Not everybody needs my opinion, and it's not an excuse to say, "I'm just being honest." It's entitlement that makes people think they have to comment on everything. It doesn't hurt to be kinder. To list all the possible reasons why we might be disagreeable would take volumes of books. Whatever is in your past, however you think your anger or disagreeableness is justified, you can make changes, one step at a time. In the end, being low in agreeableness isn't necessarily a bad thing. It all depends on how you channel it. While it can make you more competitive, resilient, and self-reliant, it can also lead to conflicts and strained relationships. The key is to find a balance and understand when being less agreeable might serve you and when it might hold you back. If you want to become more agreeable, it's definitely possible, and doing so could open doors to deeper connections and a more collaborative approach to life. Just remember, it's all about striking the right balance between being true to yourself and understanding the needs of others. Lasting growth doesn't come from quick fixes. It comes from building traits that compound over time. With the Spark Principles Trait Mastery subscription, you'll follow a framework that makes self-improvement simple, practical, and sustainable. You'll receive clear guidance, practical exercises, and engaging quizzes that make personal growth achievable. The link is in the description, along with a link to our quiz, Are You Pushing People Away? Let me know in the comments what you want to achieve. Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Please like and subscribe to help us keep bringing you videos that help you unlock your potential one trait at a time.